Did you know Higher Ed's premier tech conference, Ellucian Live, is almost here? Join industry leaders in New Orleans, March 26th through 29th. Discover insights and game-changing solutions to unlock possibility and drive student success. Register at elive.ellucian.com.
Epic.
3 higher ed authors, 100 plus college and university presidents, dozens of actionable insights for academic leaders. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education, is now available on Amazon. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salucio back with you again. And I have to tell you, I'm very excited about today's episode. I'm excited about every time I get to be on this microphone talking to today's most amazing leaders in and around higher education, business, and industry. What a blessing it is to do this over 550 times in 3 years to the tune of about 240,000 downloads. Thank you for listening. And for those of you that have supported us by picking up a copy of our new book, Commencement, the Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education, we took our first 125 presidents and took all their insights and put them in a 500 and something page book. It sounds a lot bigger than it is. We have big pull quotes on pages, so it reads very easy and very fast. So don't let the length dissuade you from picking up a copy. But I will tell you that any page you go into in that book, you're going to find 2 or 3 presidents who give insights in and around an issue we're dealing with today in higher ed. And thank you again. And I'll probably thank you on every episode. So you got to get used to hearing it, or you got to turn me off, one or the other. And if you turn me off, you turn me off. What can I do? I'm in your earbuds all the time. I'm doing this 3, 4, 5 times a week. Elvin keeps booking me. I think he's trying to kill me, honestly. Elvin is trying to kill me and take over everything. But we appreciate Elvin. Give him a shout out. I always say that Elvin is not often seen, but always behind the scenes, editing these episodes in his bathroom in his New York City apartment late at night. You can imagine he actually goes in the bathroom to hide because there's not a lot of space in that apartment. So he goes to hide from the kids so he can edit the episodes. Anyway, long story short, we're going to keep giving it to you guys. And I'm going to bring somebody back to the microphone as my guest co-host today that you know and you love. He's Joe Linhart. He's Senior Account Executive for Higher Ed Marketing at Advanced 360 Education. Joe, what is up?
Hey, what's up, Joe? It's good to see you, man. It's good to be back.
Hey, how's the weather in Colorado today, Joe?
It is beyond frigid. It is below zero. I think -4 last time I checked, Joe. And so it's been the worst winter. I've lived here 12 years this time, and it's the worst winter we've ever had since I've been back. It's been awful.
Well, that temperature says it's a good day to be inside podcasting, isn't it, Joe? Or listening to the EdUp Experience, perhaps.
Always, absolutely.
Always. Well, good. Well, we've got this is going to be a fun episode, I think, because of who we've got with us. And let me bring him to the microphone. Here he is. He's William Hajjar. He is Head of Advanced Analytics and Business Intelligence at Advanced 360. Will, what's going on?
Oh, man. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Did you know you're going to get a standing ovation before you even said anything?
No, but you know what? That's okay. You can do it again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Will Hajjar. He's Head of Advanced Analytics and Business Intelligence at Advanced 360 Education. And one more time? No, we won't do it. Welcome to the podcast, Will. We've got a lot to talk about. I mean, your title kind of says it all, Head of Advanced Analytics and Business Intelligence. Talk to me first about Advanced 360, the company itself, the scope, and your role in particular.
Sure. So Advanced 360 is part of a larger media company called Advance. It's a privately held company. It's been in business for over 100 years. It includes companies that you may have heard of, like Condé Nast, that runs the largest lifestyle publications. We have controlling interest in Charter Communications, Discovery Communications, which includes the Discovery Network, Reddit, social media. And as part of that, we have a number of different local media outlets and markets across the country, as well as all of the American business journals. So it's, as I was told when I was hired, it's the largest media company that nobody's ever heard of.
Amazing.
It is one of those companies that, quite honestly, I'm very proud to be part of. And the reason is that they have a very forward-thinking mindset relative to data, to analytics, and technology, and it cuts across different sources, from our own proprietary data that we bring to the table, to exclusive partnerships that we have, to a variety of third-party sources, whether that is Axiom and Experian, the major data compilers that are out there, to smaller boutique companies, to public sources, to research that's being done through a variety of colleges and universities. We try to bring all of that together, and that's really what makes this company different, is the investments that we make. We're not driven just by what Wall Street mandates on a quarter-to-quarter basis. We have the leadership of the company, the owners, as well as the senior executives, have a very forward-thinking mindset.
So talk about your role a little bit. So as the head of advanced analytics and business intelligence, what are you overseeing? Different verticals? Is higher education one vertical? Are you bringing data from different industries together to try to inform other industries? Can you talk about how your job kind of weaves everything together?
Sure, absolutely. So effectively, we're subject matter experts within the company. Okay, so we have three areas of expertise. We have data science, which is kind of your hardcore mathematicians and statisticians and programmers. That includes everything from customer profiling and custom segmentations to all sorts of regression models, forecasting models, and so on, to test design, execution, and optimizations that are very complex, that help you to understand and optimize the various creative messaging and offers and other pieces, channels that go into respective marketing. On the other side, we have our opinion research. We maintain a national panel that allows us to do both qualitative as well as quantitative types of research. And then the area that differentiates us most from other companies out there is our market intelligence work. And this includes everything from understanding how prospects and customers are making decisions, to what competitors are doing in particular spaces, as well as really focusing on things like geospatial analysis, mapping, that allows us to bring a whole slew of this data that I mentioned together into a single visual and understand fundamentally what's going on and how all of these pieces interact. We work across verticals, so higher education is certainly one that we're focused on, but we work across really all major verticals, from automotive to financial services and healthcare, to travel and tourism. You name it, we have our hands in it. And the reason that this is fundamentally important from my perspective is that there are cases where we may learn something in one particular vertical and then can modify it to the approach to answer particular questions or problems that are encountered in another vertical. And so because of this overlapping piece, we have a fairly broad understanding of how all of these pieces, the data science, the market intelligence, the opinion research, all come into play, not only within particular verticals, but across a wide expanse as well.
You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you.
That's what he basically said. Joe, over to you.
That's it.
You play that for your students that you teach too, right? Well,
that's it. And one of the things that we didn't mention is, in addition to the work that I do here at Advanced 360, is I also teach graduate and undergraduate courses in business strategy, statistics, and research methods at Kane University and St. Peter's University in New Jersey.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. A lot of times when we talk about our marketing services, I like to tell people, hey, we're really a data and technology company more than a marketing agency because we do so much more, and we could debate that. But the reality is it's guys like you that center us and at really on the data and the analytics. And so we were talking the other day and I'm curious if you could explain for our listeners how much data and analytics has really grown over the years and what that impact has been on higher education from your viewpoint.
Sure. Well, first of all, the introduction of digital technology has just allowed data itself to explode. And
Hey kids, it's the internet.
Part of it is the internet. It is that space that is both helpful as well as a hindrance at times. And here's the deal: there is so much data out there that, number one, it's useful because there is more data. More data is always better, but at the same time, you have to understand which pieces are those golden nuggets, because you have to weed through all of that minutia in order to be able to effectively hone in on the information that's going to be effective for you. Now, with respect to higher education, what has happened is, as a vertical, they've tended to lag behind other verticals in utilizing data and analytics. So financial services, because it is driven by so much money, is one of those that has always been in the forefront. However, what's happening now in higher education and other slowly developing verticals is that they're starting to catch up. They're starting to recognize that they have to utilize this data. They have to utilize analytics in order to better utilize their resources and to make smarter, holistic decisions relative to their strategic approaches. Now, this covers not just student prospecting. It covers decisions that are made while the students are in school, as well as maintaining engagement and donations from an alumni standpoint. So it's really a holistic availability of information to drive the recruitment of the students, to determine who's going to be most successful within your school, whether that is a small for-profit vocational and technical school, whether that is a community college, or whether that is a traditional four-year institution. All of these organizations can benefit by having this work and these understandings relative to how to better utilize their resources and drive their marketing forward. With respect to when students are in school, there's a lot more information that's collected, not only about student grades, but also how students interact within their classes, across their majors, across the schools as a whole. And then decisions that are made, I can speak from this just relative to my own work, that the deans keep tabs on what we do in the classroom, right? It's not just about what the student grades are, but it's about how the professors, what the professors bring to the classroom and how they interact with students, and ultimately make the students successful. And then at the end of the day, we're doing more and more work on that alumni engagement and donation side. There's a lot of advanced analytics and marketing that we've done over the last 5 years, in particular, to help schools understand who their alumni base is, right? How do you keep them engaged? How do you get them to donate and ultimately make that school much more viable because of this engagement? We've worked with a number of small universities as well as large universities in this respect. And when When universities start piecing together their marketing strategy from start to finish, that's when they can really show success. So it's not just about a short-term approach. It's really a long-term 5-10-year thinking about how you keep this prospective student engaged all the way through to the very end.
Nailed it.
Yeah, for sure. A lot going on with data today, huh? I was thinking as you were speaking about how fast things have changed where data is concerned, and SaaS platforms and all the things that are available to us today. And I was thinking, I am not that old, Will, but I can tell you, I started in admissions in the 90s. We didn't even have computers in admissions in the mid 90s at the institution I was at. And now today we're talking about all this sophistication that's going on. And here's my sort of testimony as a guy who ran enrollment for years, is sometimes even with large organizations or large institutions, data was flowing in so quickly and there was so much innovation going on that I felt as a leader, and I think other leaders felt this way, a little overwhelmed by the data. It was sort of like going to Cheesecake Factory, and you've got a million pages of things to choose from. I wonder from you and I didn't talk about
Joe,
this.
if I may, this was you.
Yeah, well, I just want to go home. That's it. I don't understand the rules here. I want to go home.
Take my ball and go home. Right.
That's it.
But Will, I just wonder for guys that have kind of grown up in the business and are learning on the fly right now at a high rate of speed, and this data is flying at them, how do you not get lost in the data and really strategize, what's most important so that the tail doesn't wag the dog, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It is very tough. If number one, you have people who everyone brings their own perspectives to the table, right? The reality is that most people are not trained specifically with the background that I am and others in this field are.
What?
So what that means is that you need to understand what your organization's objectives are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then you need someone to come in and help you sort through what data is available, what analytics can best apply to your particular situation. And from there, then help you understand how to piece together that strategy that's going to work for you. All right. You can have 5 different universities, all well established in different parts of the country that may offer the same exact things. But the fact is they all have different cultures. They all have different leadership. And so the approach that they take may be fundamentally different. And so bringing in someone who understands not just the data and analytics and technical side of things, but the business side as well, that you can bridge the gap, is fundamentally important, because otherwise you're going to have 2 sides that don't communicate well, and that's just a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. And then other problems come along the way. So Joe, what do you think?
I have to ask, because it's data is one of those things, especially in higher ed, as Joe said. Sometimes when you lay it out there, when you aren't used to having tons and tons of data, and you then get tons of data, especially when it's not data you went and generated, it's hard to take the results. As an industry that's catching up, as you said, to data, who's been slower to adoption, when you go in and you lay the data on the table, because the data doesn't lie, a lot of times those of us in higher ed who think we're doing our job well, that we know our students, and that we think that we're serving this type of student, and all of a sudden the data is laid out in front of us, and we go, oh, well, who pulled this? Right? Like, that's the instant reaction. Like, who's pulled this? Because they manipulated this data to tell a story that's not true. Right? There's a adoption curve, I think, that goes along with data with any kind of change. What is the data adoption curve to like a change management adoption curve? Is there something in advanced analytics that says, hey, when you actually lay eyes on data, you're going through this like denial trough, or is there something like that you've seen with higher ed, or is it just personality? Is it culture of business? that makes us go, well, I don't know if that's right or not?
Well, first of all, I had a professor at LSU that had a sign on his door that says, if you torture the data enough, it will confess. So, yeah. So, outside of waterboarding the data, we try to be very focused on which data is, number one, quality data. Okay. So you don't want to go just utilize data for the sake of utilizing data. You want to make sure that it comes from a reliable source. And one of the things that we do in advance to help try to do that, to ensure that, is to bring in data from across different sources. So let me give you an example. Surveys are inherently unreliable. And when you go out and you just ask someone for their opinion, or you encourage them in one way or another, you may set up some type of bias. So if William claims, for example, that he likes animals, right? Well, that may or may not be true. That may be the popular thing to say. But
by the way, that is very, can I just interrupt and say lightly and just say that is very, very common within higher ed, that we say, well, just survey the students. Just ask them. But then you're going to put out a survey that's almost like trying to get you the intended answer but you just wonder if you just pop a survey out to students that it's going to give you what you actually want, or if it's just going to give you something that you think you need. That is very common. Let's survey the students.
Absolutely. So if you take the example that I was giving, if William likes animals, but we take another source that's an actual behavioral source. William donated $50 to the Humane Society, right? Now you have married together what William claimed on a survey with actual behavior, and we have greater faith in those results. So ideally, what you want to do is to incorporate surveys and focus groups and other kind of qualitative efforts into that more behavioral quantitative work. Now, back to your original question, is there that curve? Well, the fact is, I don't think there's just a curve of doubt. I think the fact is it's dependent upon the individual, it's dependent upon the culture at the institution. I've worked with a lot of organizations that simply say, we don't have the experience or the expertise, right? But we're all on board with making decisions based on data and analytics. We've worked with other organizations that have said, you know what, we know everything about our vertical and about our school. There's nothing that you can tell us that's going to change. Well, the reality is that analytics typically brings in three different pieces. Number one, you're going to verify and confirm what you already know. That's one piece of it. You are going to raise areas where you think you know something, but you don't actually know it, right? Or your conclusions are wrong based on what the data is telling you. And number three, it's going to raise areas that aren't even on your radar at all. And at least two of those three things always happen when you do some type of analysis work. And when you are open to the idea that you can be wrong, or that you can learn more by going through this effort, then you ultimately will be successful, because it's when you enter all of this with a closed mind that you are going to show that no matter what the data says, no matter what the analytics show, you can you're not going to get the benefits out of it. And so if you are that type of individual, then don't go through this. Don't spend the money to go through this. But if you are going through your normal processes of planning, of marketing, of trying to optimize, and you aren't getting the results that you are, I would highly encourage your audience, to talk to an expert in this area and say, what does the data actually show? What can we conclude, and how can we put together a holistic strategy that best utilizes our resources? Because let's face it, most schools are not operating off of well endowed funds. Maybe a few higher Ivy League schools are, but most state schools are not. Most community colleges are not, and very few large businesses in the vocational and trade schools are.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your
Attention.
It's time for us to solve the puzzle of success in higher education. Get your ticket to Ellucian Live for industry insights, powerful connections, and innovative solutions. From March 26th through 29th, join peers from around the world in New Orleans to unlock the possibility and drive student and institutional success. Learn more and register at elive.ellucian.com. You know that the world of higher education is experiencing evolutions and revolutions. You want to be part of the progress. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education with insights from more than 100 college and university presidents, will show you how. Get your copy of Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education now on Amazon right away. We think you're going to love it. It's
Amazing.
You're so right? That is one of the things that's coming up a lot right now is schools are dependent on a year, 2, 3 of operational expense, and that's how they're working. They're not working with a couple $100 million, billion endowment, so that the decisions that you make in real time are going to affect that next year of operation of life. And we're seeing schools close, Joe, and that's something we've been watching for years now. For-profit sector now hitting nonprofit sector. Schools are some of them are just not making it.
Yeah, they're not. And a lot of it is because they didn't plan well enough, obviously. And so I wanted to touch on that really quick if I could. A lot of people hear about Advanced 360 education. I think we're just talking about digital marketing and lead generation and conversions and all this sort of thing. Well, what I've learned a lot in working around Will is the fact that for especially small school groups or small universities who are adding campuses or adding programs, adding online, well, a lot of times they don't do their research, they don't do their homework, and then later they wonder what happened, right? And so we had a client not too long ago we worked together with, and Will, I'm hoping you can kind of expand on this, where, basically we were able to go out and say, hey, here are some of the towns and cities that your campus would fit best in based on our research. Here are some of the programs that you should probably offer at that campus based on this data. And so could you touch on that, Will? Because I know your team handles that, and it's a great service to our customers.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned early on, one of the areas that we focus in on is market intelligence. And so we want to understand, where are the areas throughout the United States or even internationally where certain types of students sit, okay? Whether that is based on demographics, behaviors, interests, or a whole combination of things. And then, again, understanding what that particular school is trying to accomplish. Oftentimes we have schools that say, this is our student, okay? We are a cosmetology school, and this is our student, and this is who we're going after in this particular small geographic area. Okay. So we can go and we can find those individuals through the multitude of data sources that we have, through the multitude of analytics that we have, and say, here are the students who are prospects who are most likely to be successful at your school.
Oh, yeah.
The other piece then that we get are schools coming and saying, you know what, we're doing really well in these particular areas, but we're having some challenges in these other areas. So can you help us target, for example, chemical engineering students who are interested in a master's degree? Well, so we can go through, we can hone in very, very specifically on the traits of those individuals, whether they have a bachelor's degree already in chemical engineering, whether they have an interest in some type of STEM work outside of chemical engineering. And we go through a process of saying, here, building effectively an audience, a prospect audience, based on a multitude of pieces that allows us to go through and say, look, here's the base you should be working from, okay? Within the designated areas, geographic areas that you've given us, here's the base you should be working from. The third example are those schools that say, you know what, we're doing well in the particular campuses we have, but we are looking to expand. So where should we be looking to expand our campuses? And we can go through, like any other company, like a hotel, like a bank that's expanding a retail footprint. We can go through and help that school identify the market areas that are most in line with their offerings, with their culture, and ultimately help them make a financial argument as to why they should invest one place or another. So it's that whole market expansion exercise. So all of these pieces, serve their purpose, but they're all grounded in data and analytics.
I like your style, dude.
So good. So good, man. Listen, I'm curious for you to become sort of Nostradamus here for a minute. Look ahead, 5 or 10 years, where are we going with data analytics and in higher ed in your view?
Yeah. So, the interesting thing is it's not just about the data that's focused on the schools themselves, right? It's the data on the outside, what I refer to for my students as the market forces, right? These are the pieces that you have absolutely no control over whatsoever. Your competition doesn't have control. You just have to work within the structure. Best example I can give you is COVID, right? When COVID came around, everything changed. We all had to scramble to figure out how we were going to operate, right? So that's an example of a market force, whether it be cultural change or social changes, macroeconomics or financial changes, legal, political, regulatory changes, innovations through technology or processes, natural phenomenon. All of these pieces are fundamentally important. And so what we try to do is we try to monitor all of these different things so that for our clients in particular, we are not just being reactive to what is happening when executing a marketing campaign. We are being proactive and going to them and saying, hey, we see these changes occurring over the next 3 to 6 months. And so therefore, this is something you need to plan for in order to take advantage of this opportunity. Or we see this happening and there's a potential risk to your school. And so you need to plan for that and think about how you're going to accommodate that. And then, of course, just thinking longer term, taking a look at things like population trends. What's happening across the United States and globally that's going to help or hurt particular institutions, and so we try to help the schools plan out not just for the current year, but also what's going to happen, let's say, the next 3 to 5 or to 10 years, based on changes in industry, based on the emergence or the decline of particular jobs, changes in population. I gave a talk at a conference earlier in 2022 that showed that we're shifting from a population standpoint in the United States. We're moving away from larger cities. We're moving from the West Coast and the Northeast more towards the interior. And so over the next 5 to 10 years, schools need to plan for that, particularly if you are accounting for a large number of your students being from certain geographic areas. And so, we're seeing other things like, for example, because of the need for workers and the supply of particular workers in certain areas. What's happening is industry is going through and saying, we no longer necessarily need them to have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree for this particular type of job, but we need for them to have our particular skill sets. And so it's skill sets and experience. And so what's happening is the specifications for those jobs are changing. And that trickles down to each of the offerings from the particular school. So let's go back to engineering. If a particular job used to require a certain type of engineering degree, maybe they no longer need that lower level employee to have a bachelor's degree. Instead, they need to have 5 to 10 years experience with particular skill sets, right? So now they can go to certain trade or vocational schools and get those skill sets rather than going and spending 4 years at a traditional institution. So there are changes that are occurring over the next 5 to 10 years that are going to vastly impact what's happening within the higher education space.
I love that. Joe, do you have any other I say I love that because you really hit on a range of issues, including the value of a college degree, which is one of my questions. And you laid it out there before I could ask it, which is important because it is a central piece of a conversation. It's why we're asking for data. It's what the consumer tendencies are. It's the product offerings and relevance. If you don't have relevance, then you don't have a customer that's buying. And it's this ecosystem, and data is helping us figure it out. And we need data to help us figure it out because I think, and I don't know if you guys agree or not, that colleges do have staying power. They're highly embedded. There's a lot of barriers to entry. Some are closing out, which market consolidation is usually a good thing. But when you offer the same product for so long, eventually you have to change your product offering. Like the consumer demands change. And so that brings me to my question, and then we'll have Joe slide in the others, and then we'll close this out. But when higher ed institutions are coming to Advanced 360 saying, hey, look, we need help. Is it recruitment help? Is it retention help? Is it donation help? Like, how are you getting them? And I'm sure there's an expansion of services that happens once you figure out you need help in every area. But what's for those listening, they're going, my institution needs help with X. Like, what are people demanding help with right now in higher ed?
It's across the board. It covers all three areas that I mentioned earlier, from student recruitment to the body of students that are actually enrolled currently, to the alumni engagement. And we even do work with athletic organizations, specifically for fan engagement and optimization. And so it boils down to, number one, bringing in the right students, the right type of students who are going to be successful at your organization. And then ultimately, how do you best utilize the resources to attract them? And then through all of this, how do you then get them to remain engaged and supportive of your institution, right? So we get questions across the board. Sometimes it's, how do we bring in first-time students? We'll call them the traditional students, right? Those we'll call them 16 to 24-year-olds, right? We're seeing more and more now with students who have some type of professional experience going back to school, right? Whether it be for their bachelor's degree, whether it be for a master's degree or other graduate program, or just to gain additional skills through certifications or some other type of development program.
Level up.
So the fact is that a lot of those 25 to 45-year-olds in particular have changes in their life stage. Maybe they were a little immature when they should have been going to school the first time, but now they recognize that in order to grow, they need to get a degree. Maybe they've gotten married and have kids, and so now they recognize they need that degree in order to help provide for their families. If you're older, maybe you recognize that, hey, your kids are out of school, you had your job and didn't necessarily like it as much, but you fed your family. And so now you're going to go back and do what you really want to do now that the kid's out of school, out of school, out of the household. So there's a variety of reasons these individuals are going back, but more and more, getting back to the point that you made earlier, Joe, about the value of education. Students consistently are weighing what that value is relative to the amount of time that they have to invest. And so you are seeing changes in the mindset. So instead of going for a traditional four-year degree, they're going for certifications, particularly in areas where they don't necessarily need to have that four-year degree. You have a lot of schools that are coming in trying to consolidate the amount of time it takes to get a bachelor's degree. I was driving through Virginia Beach not long ago and saw a school called ECPI, and they were advertising a basically 2.5-year undergraduate program. So, you know, that's a big shift from 4 years to 2.5 years. Now, the thing is this: how are schools going to respond, right? Are you going to, for example, change your program offerings, change your class times maybe to offer more early morning classes and late night and weekend classes? Maybe the shift to online, which is a big move right now, which of course opens up a whole can of worms about every school in the United States offering online and trying to compete against every other school that's offering online.
Yes.
Targeted a particular geographic area, you're now expanding your competitive set across the nation and the globe. So there's a lot of moving pieces in this, and you know what we try to do is, and any good consultant should try to do, is to utilize as much data, as much analytics as possible to try to help guide their clients down the road, right? I'm a big believer it shouldn't only be one data set, right? Don't go and just do one survey. Don't go and just work with one company. Gather as much as you can across the board, because different information will tell you different things, and it will validate other pieces, as I've mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Joe, any last questions?
I would just kind of agree with what he said, and I was thinking about it this way with these schools. As someone who came out of the school business, some of these folks that I work with and Will works with, they're so sophisticated and prepared and proactive and up on their toes, you know. And then there are other schools that we work with, they're just reactive, they're behind the curve, they really need our help across the board. And so it kind of leads me into something to close with today that I think is really important, and even Will could very, very briefly just kind of touch on it even. That is the fact we're going into this cookieless world, you know, on the marketing side of things, you know, which basically means that you're not going to be able to use those cookies that Google, you know, allowed you to use for all these years after this summer. And so there are companies out there right now that are scrambling because they don't have the first party data to be able to pursue and target those students. Well, we do, because we are such a large media company that Will spoke of. And so Will, from a data perspective, and again, we're short time here, I just wonder, when you think about the cookieless world and data, how powerful is it that we have so much first party data to help these schools?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a lot of work right now. We've been planning for the last couple of years that these cookies were going to go away. They were actually going away in 22. It got extended to 2023. So there's a lot of work being done right now. And the fact that we are a large company, we maintain our own proprietary first-party data, we are able to go through and effectively bypass this problem because we're linking the different pieces together in the work that we're doing up front. And so now we're going to be able to do this targeting without having the extreme consequences that a lot of firms will, because we have this proprietary data. We're doing the work up front to link it all together, and so the surface offerings, when these go away, will be much more complete than they would be if we didn't have this.
There you go, Joe.
I love it, you guys. This is a really insightful and important episode, especially as higher ed and we as an industry evolve, change, update. Data is, I always hear it, right? If you go anywhere, you do any consulting, you talk to people in higher ed, somebody always goes, we need better data-driven decision-making. I mean, right, Joe? How many times do you hear that? I hear it
Every time.
I hear it every day at my institution. I hear it amongst other institutions. I hear it on every podcast. I hear, you need to make data-driven decision-making. You need to go, it's out there, got to know what to do. It is complicated. You do need expertise in finding, pulling, analyzing this data. Advance can help you. And I will say that today's been an incredible episode. My guest host, you know him, you love him, Joe Linhart. He's Senior Account Executive for Higher Ed Marketing at Advanced 360 Education. Joe, thanks for coming back again.
It is my pleasure. Thanks for having me, my friend.
Always. Joe and I have known each other like, what, 20 years probably?
Yeah.
By the way, I will say, and this is, let me soapbox moment for you here. I don't typically do this like right by, in the outro, but one of the things that made for-profits very, very good at growth was they knew how to use data better than the nonprofit counterparts. That's why they grew so fast. And a lot of those folks who worked in for-profits, who, by the way, got their nose turned, got noses turned down on them when they tried to go into nonprofit and experience some bias. I know I did. I'll tell a story sometime on this episode about what happened on some of my interviews. But those folks went into either nonprofit higher ed for big companies like you've heard of them, SNU and WGU and others, or they went into OPMs to serve higher ed in a different way. That business intelligence from the for-profit sector went into nonprofit. Now nonprofit is catching up, realizing that they have expertise or needed that expertise. Don't you think, Joe, since you worked in, don't you think when we were doing some of this stuff way back when, and there were numbers all around us in 2003 floating around us like crazy?
Yeah, and we had to survive. We didn't have state and federal monies coming in to keep the lights on, and so you had to be innovative and creative all the time. It was a competitive space, right? And I share your frustration. I just to whine a little bit. You know what I went through, and I went through the great downsizing as well in the for-profit space. And listen, I'm still blessed enough to work with higher ed folks, but I'm on the marketing side now, on the private side, offering marketing services because, frankly, the nonprofit side and the state schools wouldn't have me, right? And it's really kind of a shame because now you're seeing that they're discovering guys like yourself who have a lot of skills and a lot of experience that can help them to flourish. So,
well, there's another guy. Go ahead, Will.
Could I make one last comment on this? I mean, it ties into what you've been talking about. The fact is that if you are a not-for-profit school right now, chances are you have a lot of data. You have a lot of data in a lot of different places. And it's not just enough to say we're going to be data driven. You have to do this the right way. You have to bring all of these pieces of information together and make them accessible. It can't just be sitting on someone's desktop in an Excel spreadsheet and you're the only one that has access to it. You've got to make this an enterprise view across the board so that all the strategic decision making feeds from a centralized location. When you do that and everyone is talking the same language, that's when you're going to be successful.
100%.
Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, he's dropped knowledge. I could say that safely. I think he's dropped knowledge on us. Here he is. He's William Hajjar. I think I got that right. He's head of advanced analytics and business intelligence at Advance 360. Will, thank you for coming on. Did you have a good experience today?
I did. Thank you very much for your invite, and thank you for your audience for listening.
Great job,
ladies.
Will.
Yes, great job. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some
Amazing
news. It's time to work together to solve the puzzle of success in higher education. Elucian Live returns to New Orleans from March 26th through 29th to help you unlock possibility for your institution. And yes, the EdUp experience will be there recording live. Industry leaders from all across the world are converging to discover new insights, game-changing solutions, and powerful connections, all with the goal of addressing higher ed's greatest opportunities and biggest challenges. You do not want to miss Elucian Live. Learn more and secure your seat today at elive.elucian.com. It will be
amazing.
It's time to
Level up.
The beginning of a new era in higher education begins with you. Order your copy of Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education by Kate Colbert, Dr. Joseph Lucio, with contributions by Elvin Freitas. It's higher education's must-read book of 2022. Discover how you can seize the moment to change higher education forever. Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education, now available on Amazon. For bulk orders, contact Kate, Joe, or Elvin